I found out that toxic chemicals were in my family's
found out that toxic chemicals were in my community.
My husband, Nate Barber, is a firefighter here at the Nantucket Fire Department. We have two boys, Musa and Abe, and we just have a really lovely life, and we live out here on this beautiful little island out to sea. And everything was great until about a year ago. He got diagnosed with testicular cancer. I started to look into the high rates of cancer in firefighters and why firefighters now have such a high rate of cancer. It's the number one leading cause of death in firefighters. And through that, I started to see the correlations with PFAS classic chemicals and how they are in their firefighting gear and they're in their AFFF foam that they use. And I don't see any need for it. We really need to work really hard on removing PFAS chemicals from their foam and from the gear that is supposed to protect them. We cannot let another family go through this. We can't let more and more of our fire service and our heroes keep getting affected by cancers through these chemicals.
We have found PFAS chemicals in our water. We are very devastated about this issue. We have seen many people in our communities die of cancer. My daughter passed away in 2007. I've seen little children, 5 years old, die of brain cancer, including my niece. And I have lived the devastation of this pollution in our community.
My name is Sandy Wynn Stout, and I live in Belmont, Michigan. My husband Joel and I met many years ago, and we were married in 1991. Joel and I lived here happily, madly in love, very boring lives until 2016. We were getting ready to celebrate our 25th anniversary when Joel started having some stomach problems. He went in for surgery and they discovered that he had stage 4 liver cancer. Joel died 3 weeks later, and it was beyond the worst part of anything that could have happened to me. The following year, our Department of Environmental Quality came to my home and said they needed to test my groundwater for this chemical called PFAS. My well has continued to be tested, and at some points we're as high as 70 or 80,000 parts per trillion. My blood was tested and found to have 5 million parts per trillion. Earlier this year, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. I think it's important that our federal government act on this and act now. We don't have time to wait. People are being contaminated by this and have no idea that it's happening to them.
And I was asked to be the chairperson for South Carolina Idle No More because I'd been very active as an Indigenous water protector. I decided that the one thing that needed to be addressed was protection of water. And then my son was diagnosed with testicular cancer. It was just, now I'm on this journey. We started kind of piecing things together and going, okay, the doctor even said, your testicular cancer is not common. You didn't have, the precursors for it. So he really felt like the reason why he had it was battling with that was because of the contamination. And as things started piecing together, I realized that this is a problem. What I saw was nobody's talking about this. Nobody is doing anything. Just now, this summer, started testing the rivers in different locations to know that there was some contamination that impacted the water and that impacted the communities for almost 20 years. And they're just now starting to take action here. That's why there is an absolute need for something more to be done. Should have been doing something a long time ago. Now you have communities and housing developments and people living on top of contamination and contaminated water.
Hi, I'm Hope, and I lived across the street from the Naval Air Development Center in Warminster, Pennsylvania. We lived there for over 25 years. We lived adjacent to the firefighting training centers where they burnt the fires and were spraying them out with PFAS chemicals back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We were standing by the fence, watching these planes go by, ingesting the fumes. We also had a well in our front lawn, and we were drinking the water, we were swimming in the water. We had a private well most of our lives. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in 1990, and my father was diagnosed with a brain tumor in late 80s, and he passed away from a brain tumor. My sister has many autoimmune diseases, and I fear for the future for my children, understanding that these chemicals cross the placenta.
I drank the contaminated water for 20 years. I had 3 boys, and my oldest, who was 6 years at that time, we found out that he had a cancerous brain tumor. My exposure may have actually caused cancer in my child. Even more difficult for me to comprehend the fact that both the Department of Defense and the chemical manufacturers knew darn well that these chemicals caused harm to human health and sat silently and did nothing to protect not only the local communities, but even their own military.
Hello, my name is Jay Most. I was a firefighter in Florida for 33 years. In January of 2018, I had my vocal cords, part of my esophagus, my epiglottis, and lymph nodes removed due to throat cancer. I wore my firefighter gear as directed by the manufacturer for 33 years. Little did I know, and the rest of the firefighters in the country, that the gear was manufactured with PFAS chemicals in them, and the manufacturers knew that these PFAS chemicals caused cancer. The very gear we were wearing was dangerous to us, was causing cancer to us without our knowledge. Please join us in contacting your legislatures, your governors, the president-elect to get these chemicals banned. We must get these chemicals banned completely.
Hi, my name is Lorene Allen. I live in Merrimack, New Hampshire, where we learned in March of 2016 that our water is contaminated by Saint-Gobain performance plastics. Fabric coating by industry is very off the radar in the PFAS discussion. It's active, it's ongoing. The research that's out there is not being applied to humans. And in my community, we hear story after story of mothers, children, fathers, brothers, sisters, and whole neighborhoods that have health issues that, by our own research, we know are associated strongly with PFAS exposure. I do not know one community that's impacted, including mine, that has exposure to only PFOA and PFOS. Or groundwater contamination, which is where we get our drinking water, is attributed to air emissions that are active and ongoing and unfiltered currently. Those air emissions pass into the soil leaches into the groundwater, we drink it, we breathe it. It's in our gardens, it's in our blood, and we know from a non-target analysis that there are 190 distinctly different PFAS chemicals coming out of those air stacks, and there are at least 34 in our water sources. So we add those all up to the total number of PFAS, it's a heck of a lot more than 2 that we're talking about regulating in 6 or 7 years. I hear mothers asking questions about the health of their families every single day. And I look at the progression of illness in my family and other families. I need action now. We don't have the time to wait for this. Every case that we talk about is a mother, a father, a loved one, a child. We need to stop the source. We need to validate the harm, and we have to do everything we can.
Hi, my name is Eric Weiner from the Clean Water Task Force at Windsor Climate Action. The image behind me is from the Farmington River. Last June, 2019, imagine this river a little bit upstream from here being covered bank to bank with foam that was 2, 3, 4 feet thick. You would think, hey, that's not right. So I heard that happened. There was a discussion that it was due to a leak from Bradley Airport, which is a few miles upstream from here. And there had been a spill of 40,000 gallons of firefighting foam in one of their hangars that washed into the river and caused that contamination. The fight against PFAS is critical.
My name is Stell Bailey, and I'm from Florida's Space Coast. In 2013, my uncle, who was not blood related but lived with my family, was diagnosed with cancer. Then a few months later, my little brother, at the age of 21, was diagnosed with cancer. 3 months later, I was diagnosed with cancer. And then our father was diagnosed with cancer. We found that the Kennedy Space Center, Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, and Patrick Air Force Base polluted our home with these forever chemicals. We learned that these chemicals were not only in our already sensitive Indian River Lagoon, but our groundwater and drinking water. We deserve to know what is in our water to help prevent tragedies like what my family experienced. Now's our chance to take action and help us save lives.
My name is Andrea Amico, and I'm with Testing for Peas from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. In May of 2014, I read a newspaper article that changed my life. I learned that PFAS contamination had been discovered in the drinking water wells in my community. The source of PFAS in the water came from firefighting foam known as aqueous film-forming foam, or AFFF, used by the military when the former Pease Air Force Base was active and in operation. And my community is not alone. There are over 600 other military sites across the country that have been identified to have PFAS contamination as a result of using this firefighting foam. This is a huge problem, and it's not going away anytime soon. We still have no enforceable drinking water standard for PFAS in this country. My family and others have a right to live in a healthy and safe community. The EPA must regulate PFAS as a class and must set a maximum contaminant level of 1 part per trillion for the entire class of PFAS. Now is our chance to take action. That's why I'm calling on President-elect Biden's EPA to take a much stronger stance to regulate PFAS, to protect communities like mine, and prioritize cleanup and action for so many that have been impacted by PFAS.